Moderator Kodzi, can you try to greet us so that we see if we can hear if you are now audible? Hi, Kodzi. Okay. So I think Kodzi is still facing some challenges. What I'm just going to request is that if everyone can mute their mic for us to be able to interact better. It minimizes the feedback. So I'll hand over to Tapiwa to lead us and indicate who is going to present first or how it's going to happen. So over to you, Tapiwa.
Okay, thank you very much, Enimo, and good afternoon to everyone. If you can also kindly confirm if I'm audible so I can proceed.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, Madam Tapiwa, you're very audible.
Very audible.
Very audible.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much for the confirmation. I will just put my camera on so that you can put the name to the face, but as I proceed, I will then switch off my camera to conserve data. So thank you once again for everyone who has joined this panel discussion. We really appreciate you taking time to come through and to talk to us. It is going to be a discussion after all, whereby we also want to hear your thoughts on how best we can help you to start participating on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So to kickstart this program, we have our panelists that are going to be taking us through some of their experiences as participants, what has worked and the experiences that they have actually encountered before we then open it up to the rest of the participants and before we also tackle some of the questions that we have. So to kickstart, I am going to call upon a representative from KEBS Custodial Services. Michael, confirm if you're on the call so that you can start and just share your experiences in less than 3 minutes of what you've experienced as a custodian, so that at least participants get to have a feel of what has been happening. Michael, I will now hand over this time to you.
Thanks, Tapiwa. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can, but if you can also increase the volume, that will also help.
Thank you. I'll try to increase the volume. So basically, I think from our end, I think the experience that we have encountered, I think since the launch of VFX, is I think the inquiries in terms of how one is supposed to participate, how they're supposed to open accounts. So I think what we discovered is there isn't enough information out there for those that want to participate to be involved. You find, especially in terms of retail clients, there are quite a number that are involved, but they don't have the info in terms of how they can get in on the market as well and participate. So what I basically think is we need to make the necessary noise across all platforms, take leverage of the social media, send flyers and so forth, because I think that's where most of these retail clients are sitting, and we should be seeing these numbers coming in. So, and I think also another note is I think the investor education that I think is something that we also need to invest in, because you find some of the inquiries or the questions that you would be asked by those that are interested to participate, you would see that they have limited knowledge in terms of how investments works and how they can participate in a market like VFX. So if we take care of those things in terms of disseminating information and educating those prospective investors, especially in terms of retail clients, we should see some traction within that space, and the numbers will increase. So that's, I think, what I can basically say from our end. But inquiries are coming in, and if the information is out there, we should see quite a number of investors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that information and for sharing your experience with the rest of the team. I'll now move on to another representative from CBZ Custodial Services, Jasper Musuka. I'll hand over this time to also just share your experience with everyone on this call.
Thank you.
participate in this discussion. My name is Jasper Msuka, CBZ Custodial Services. Our experiences really, as the earlier panelists said, we've had a lot of interest, people asking questions on how this VFX operates. And initially, we found that a few of the retail clients were really just wanting to sell. Most likely because the information wasn't there and people were not trusting it as yet. But we have seen a lot of other clients now wanting to open accounts. So we are hoping that as we preach the word in the market, hopefully more clients will come up and there will be liquidity and activity on VFX, because that's the other challenge. I think on the corporate side, maybe if I can bring in something, the questions that we have had is our money, if we trade on VFX, going to have the effect of the 20% liquidation, which I think as a market we need to address, and maybe VFX team would actually help us on that one as well to address what happens on that. But otherwise, in terms of the process, I think it's quite simple, and I think with what we have been doing as a market, I think the whole process is being simplified, and hopefully, if there were any delays in opening accounts and all that, hopefully as we simplify the processes, it will be better for everyone else. But the issue is, again, is there appetite out there? And also, as Michael said, we need to preach the word. We need to send out the information for everyone to be comfortable. I think that's mainly it from us as CBZ Custodial Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jasper. We really appreciate that feedback. And let me move on to another custodian from FBC Custodial Services who's on this call. Richard, if you can just share your experiences in less than 3 minutes. Over to you, Richard.
All right. Thank you, Tapio. Good afternoon, team. I think from FBC Custodial, we have been receiving a lot of inquiries, like the other colleagues have already said. But I think what is hazy is regarding the corporates, where we are saying we are already guided by the RRV 177, the statutory instrument, the exchange control guideline, which was issued by the Reserve Bank in 2020. That guideline said only free funds and offshore funds can be invested on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So that means if we are not going to be having more of those companies listing on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, I think with the local companies we will have a challenge of uptake. We need more companies to list on the VFX. In terms of individuals, I think we are getting some traction. Individuals, it's quite clear that the funds for individuals are free funds. So those ones, they are coming through. But in terms of corporates, there is still some work to be done. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. I think I'm taking note of everything that you're saying. We are going to have a discussion after this, after everyone has shared their experience, where we will tackle more about some of the issues that has been raised by your fellow custodians. Moving on to one of our important participants, who are our stockbrokers. Tabang, confirm you're on the call. Maybe just also share your experience in less than 2 minutes as we move on. Tabang, over to you.
All right, thank you. Mic check, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Tabang. You can go on.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tabang Mandishidza, and I'm a financial analyst, front office client liaison officer, as well as a dealer in training at Bethel Equities. Our experience has been a mixed bag, with long-term investors absolutely happy with counters being placed on the Victoria Falls Exchange, while short-term investors or traders are unhappy with the current performance. So some long-term investors we have spoken to believe that the counters on the VFX will experience significantly greater risk-adjusted returns given the many incentives that are available to institutions that are listed on the Victoria Falls Exchange. These long-term investors expect better dividends in US dollar terms in comparison to that which could be expected from the ZSC. On the flip side, some short-term investors that we have spoken to do not like that trading is highly subdued with lack of liquidity and market depth, which we believe is affected by confidence due to previous currency policy shifts. When we actually talk to the current and potential investors, we find out what the expectations are and try to manage some of them. For example, some investors believe that if they invest a small amount of $100 in the stock market, then by sometime next year, that initial 100 investment would have grown enough to buy a car or property stand, which we believe is an unrealistic expectation. Can you still hear me?
Yes, Taban, we can hear you.
Okay. What has worked is that trading on the broker side is exactly the same for both the Victoria Falls Exchange and the ZSC, which has eliminated any migration to different systems issues. What has not worked is the price discovery in the market, which is to be expected as the VFEX is still in its infancy, and price discovery by nature takes time as buyers and sellers' expectations are met and fulfilled in the market. So I'd like to agree with our custodians that a major improvement would be more intensive investor awareness campaigns to manage what is reasonably possible when making investments on the Victoria Falls Exchange. This is all I have for now in terms of our experiences. Back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tabang, for that comprehensive feedback. I will move on to a representative from IS Securities, Kudzai Machua. I'm handing over this time to you to also just share with us your experiences.
Thank you, Tapia. Afternoon. I think it's been slow for starters. I guess it's the limited investment options that are available, but we're starting to see inquiries from clients. Mostly it's the retail individual clients, but I think it has been highlighted where the definition of free funds and how it affects corporates. Retail clients by themselves would not be able to sustain that market, so we need clarity on what that means for corporates and what they can invest. And I think RBZ issues with, if you participate on the VFEX, can you then get money on the auction, for example, if you're a corporate? But I think we need clarity on what constitutes free funds, because the definition that's there limits it to mostly funds held by individuals. But so far, I think those are the issues we're seeing. I think we'll share more as the meeting progresses. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kudzai, for that information. We'll now hand over to Wafa from Linton Edwards to also share their experiences.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'll deal with the other matters not already addressed. As Linton Edwards stockbrokers, we did the first ever trade on VFX, and I think so far we have done the majority of trades on the VFX platform for institutional clients, corporate and individual clients as well. Our experience has been that a significant number of our clients who already hold Seedco and Padenga have not yet gotten to the point where they're able to open accounts that are required for VFX trading. The main challenge there is that we are not able to adequately assist our clients to open these accounts. The other issue that we have identified is that clients are worried about how they will be classified for charges by custodian, whether they'll be treated as proper custodial clients or as retail clients. So that's maybe something that needs to be addressed. We are also having issues in trying to convince our clients because of their previous experiences with custodians under the custodial model that the ZSC used. And there's need to differentiate the model that's being used by the VFX and the model that was used previously when the custodian model was being used for retail clients. Institutional clients are not a problem. They know how to deal with custodians, and they are sufficiently informed about that issue. On the trading front, we're able to execute and report trades. But what happens is sometimes we are not able to track trades through to settlement. And we have clients coming back to us and asking us whether trades have settled. And there's a gap there, maybe in terms of reporting to clients when settlements happen. As brokers, we are very keen to see activity on the VFX increase. And we do have a lot of interest from both existing and prospective clients. And this is across the range of clients, institutional, corporate, and individuals. But there's a lot of hesitation that creeps in when we explain the steps needed to reach the point where they can actually trade. So there's that that the process is not sufficiently simple for clients to understand it and to proceed with it. I think I think that's about it. We'll be able to maybe raise the other issues as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wafa, for that comprehensive experience and feedback. This was very important feedback, both from the custodians and also from the stockbrokers, because this will also form part of the discussions that we're about to get into. I noted that Kudzi is back. I just wanted to confirm if he's now audible so that I can hand over back to him. Kudzi.
Afternoon, Tapiwa. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Technology has got its way of embarrassing you.
No, that's fine, Kudzi. You can now take over the second section of the questions.
Thank you, Tapiwa. So yes, as Tapiwa says, I welcome you all to the panel discussions where we have got a number of questions that we are going to be asking the panelists, and to kickstart that process, maybe before I do that, I just wanted to remind you all that it's in less than 2 months, and to be precise, on the 23rd of October, the VFX would have turned 1 year, so first anniversary. So hopefully by the end of this discussion, I would have come up with plans, strategies, and the know-how on how we can take the Victoria Falls further. So without further ado, I'll start with Tinashe Mapara from the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, just for him to explain how the Victoria Falls connects with the custodians and stockbrokers. That's the structure of that.
Thanks, Kudzi. So the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, being the exchange, runs both the trading platform, which is the automated trading system, as well as the central securities depository for the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. And that being the case, it is connected to a number of stakeholders, not just the custodians and stockbrokers. So I'll just go through the whole stakeholders that are currently connected to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So the first stakeholder is your issuer of the security that is traded on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So the issuers have to comply with the listing requirements set forth by the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, and they can list any of the eligible securities according to this Securities Act. So we can have listings in equities, which is your shares, bonds, exchange traded funds, real estate investment trusts, and so forth. Then we have got we have the custodians in the custodian bank. So these are the guardians of the securities as well as the funds for investors. So they undertake the security settlement as well as the fund settlement on behalf of investors. Then we have got the stockbrokers, who are the trading agents or for the investors. So when an investor comes to the market, they trade through their stockbroker. So the trading is handled by the stockbroker. The funds in the securities are kept by the custodian. Then we also have the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, which is the settlement bank, where fund settlement takes place. So there is an account where the custodians or the custodian banks all are connected, and at that account, that's where the fund settlement happens for trades executed or settling on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So in a nutshell, that's the ecosystem that the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange has and the participants that it is connected to. Thank you, Kuzi.
Thank you, Tinashe. So many players involved there. I guess it's for checks and balances and not to make the whole process cumbersome. But let me come to Robert now. Robert, how transparent is trading on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange? And are there any measures you have put in place to supervise trading on the platform?
Okay. Thank you, Kuzi. Yes, I think, as you are aware, the market platform is the most transparent platform where even investors who wish to just observe activity on the market, they are free to be in a position to get access through our platform. So we use a system which is very transparent, which can be where every other investor has an opportunity to log in and see what's happening in the market. But the measures that we have put in place for transparency purposes and to ensure smooth trading, firstly, we do have regulations through the Securities Act, which allows us to be in a position to provide guidelines to ensure that the market participants or the intermediaries we have in the market are people of integrity and they meet certain financial obligations to be in a position to be admitted on that market. Over and above that, we do have what we call membership rules. Membership rules talk to the admission process that we need to have to ensure that the market, the people that we're admitting, people of integrity, they do have sufficient level of skill to enable them to execute their main three roles, which is execution, research, and sponsoring. So that is a key component in terms of ensuring that the market itself is working smoothly with good professionals who are able to do that. We also have the rules, the trading rules, in which guide members in terms of how do members put orders which they would have received from investors. So these are the pieces of legislation that help us to regulate the market to ensure that the market is in a more transparent manner. So in a nutshell, those are the three pieces of legislation that we use to really supervise and regulate the market.
Thank you. Yeah, you can go ahead, Robert.
Sorry, I'd finished that. I'm saying those are the three things that we really use in able to provide a much more efficient regulated platform.
Thank you for that, Robert, for assuring the market that this is not just any other market, but this is a regulated market, which is obviously there's also a regulator, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, and that's assuring. I interact quite a lot with retail investors, among other investors, and one area that they seem not to understand, especially considering that most retail investors, especially the ones that are just coming through to the market, experiencing the market for the first time, they've done through online trading platforms, and they do not understand the role that a stockbroker plays. I know the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange at the moment doesn't have an online trading platform, but just to make sure that the information is out there, we would want to know the role that stockbrokers play in the trading process.
I'm not going to give you yogurt, Ukaramba. What do you want?
I want to start with Tabang. Can you just tell us the role that stockbrokers play in the trading process?
Now, in the trading process, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can
So,
go ahead.
in the trading process, our role as stockbrokers is to provide advice and information on the current market activity. Once the client has assessed the information, we take their final trading orders and execute the orders by placing the buy or sell orders in the market in search for matching orders, and this is on behalf of the client. Ultimately, in the process, we advise clients on the best way to maximize their investments. And that's, in a nutshell, is our role. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kudzai, anything to add on that in terms of the role that stockbrokers play in the trading process? Kudzai Machuma, I am realizing that we have two Kudzais on the platform. Kudzai Machuma, is there anything else that you can add in terms of the role that stockbrokers play on the trading process?
Thanks, Kudzi. I think it's, as you said, but in addition, our job, we're intermediaries between buyers and sellers on the market for the clients, but we do that to the best advantage of the clients that we represent. In some cases, we represent both buyer and seller. So whatever, our job is to do the best for the client and to advise through our research departments and analysts, through our analysts, you being one of the analysts that have worked in the market. That's our job there. Thanks, Kudzi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Kudzai, on that one. Now, every market has got what we call settlement of trades. There is need to settle those trades. And I know on other platforms, like for example, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, just maybe for housekeeping, please let's mute our mics so that we don't have nasty feedbacks. So as I was saying that we have got what we call settlement. Trades have to settle. Now, Tinashe, in terms of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, you use your own depository for settlement. Explain to us what settlement is and the role that the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange depository plays.
Okay, so thank you, Kudzi. So the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange depository has a role to clear and settle all transactions that are executed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So firstly, maybe I will explain the clearing process, then I'll go on to the settlement process. So the clearing process is basically making a trade ready for settlement. So the first aspect is we have to ensure that the buyer of those securities here's the amount or the funds for that trade required for that trade to settle. Then on the flip side, the seller has the securities in his account or her account for that trade to settle. So that process is the process that takes place from the trade date to around about T+2. Once the custodians have confirmed that the client does have the funds or the securities for the trade, we will then go on to the settlement process that happens on T+3. We have what we call a delivery versus payment model, where the shares or the securities and the funds are exchanged simultaneously. So what that does is the settlement aspect is split into two. We have got security settlement and we have got funds settlement. So on the security settlement is where the securities in client accounts move from the seller to the buyer. Then we have got fund settlement where the funds are moving from the buyer to the seller. So the fund settlement is that leg that is executed on the Reserve Bank platform, where the Reserve Bank is a settlement bank. And once we get the confirmation that the funds have moved from the buying custodian to the selling custodian, we will then execute the security settlement from the seller to the buyer. And all these, the settlement is being monitored or is being monitored and reconciled by the custodian who is the agent of the client in respect to settlement.
Thank you. There, are you done? So you mentioned custodians as well when you were explaining your point, Tinashe. Now let me come to Michael Pachika from KEBS Custodial. We understand that when one has to trade on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, there are certain accounts that one must have, and one of those is the FCA accounts. Can you just explain to us briefly the type of FCA account one is required to have for trading on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange?
Thanks, good. So basically, in terms of the accounts that are required for one to be able to participate on VFX, for individuals, it's straightforward. It's just one FCA account that is there for individuals. Then as for corporates, that's when you need to have your FCA investment account. And as per RV 177 of 2020 directive from RBZ, it indicated that the investments nostro is not subject to any surrender value, and it means all those funds that are sitting in that investment account are free funds. So basically, those are the two accounts that are to be used in terms of trading on the VFX. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Let me come to Jasper. Jasper, in terms of opening those accounts, maybe you can tell us the requirements that one needs to have for them to be able to open those accounts.
Thank you, Kudzi. As the custodian, as CBZ, we have got these two, the individual or the retail, and then the proper custodial accounts, which are the corporates mainly, and a few individuals. The individuals who are coming in through the retail process, what we have structured is the client just goes to the branch and he opens his FCA if he doesn't have. He opens his FCA at the branch with all the required documents, and all the checks are done in terms of anti-money laundering, CFT, and all the other checks. And once it's done there, he then also submits his VFX form completed at the branch, and the branch will then forward it to custodial services to open. In terms of KYC, you would need your ID and your proof of residence mainly. And on the corporates, it's all the other directors, KYCs and all that will be needed. That's for proper custodial accounts. And then the proper custodial accounts, we actually go into a contract with the client in terms of the fees. The individuals, just to highlight, the retail clients, so that there is financial inclusion, we decided that we will then charge them fees on a transaction basis rather than on a proper custodial account where we charge fees on a monthly basis. That's what we do at CBZ. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jasper, on that. Now let me come to the stockbrokers. One question that I often get when I interact with the retail investors is to say, guys, how much should I start with in my investment journey? And also, when you recommend or when you tell them that you require so much, sometimes when they go to the stockbrokers, sometimes they're told that it's not enough. So maybe let's hear from the stockbrokers. When it comes to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, what is the minimum or the set minimum amount that one requires to start their investment journey? on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. I'll come to you, Wafa Kuchera first from Linton Network Stockbrokers. What is the minimum amount that you accept for an investor to start trading on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange?
Thank you, Kotsi. The VFX, in the same way as the ZSE, has a minimum transacting or minimum transacting lot size of 100. So if you can afford to buy 100 shares of whichever counter that you want to buy, that will be sufficient. But what we do is we also advise clients that there are charges involved in, and when you're transacting small amounts, the costs actually add up more. They add up faster. So our advice to clients would be to start with a reasonable amount that caters for charges, and that where you divide the number of shares that you are buying and the costs that are involved, you have a meaningful investment that you are making. Thank you, Kotsi.
Hi, Kudzi, we cannot hear you.
So thank you so much, Wafa. Let me come to Tabang at Bethel. Do you have any minimum amount that you accept?
All right, thank you for the question once again. There is no set maximum on how much an investor is willing to invest. More is always better. However, we strongly recommend at least $100 per counter invested, so that it at least makes sense for the investor themselves. Our approach has always been guided that any investor is allowed to buy a minimum number of 100 shares, but this too should also make economic sense for the client. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabang. And Kudzai, when this event is put online, I know the ZSC will put it online. Investors would want to know what is the minimum amount that you guys at IH would accept if they come to your doors.
Thanks,
I'm using the phone.
As mentioned before, the minimum lot is 100 shares per counter, but for admin purposes and other things, different companies have different limits. Ours is $500 per individual client and $1,000 for corporates. But those are just admin. It's not the minimum as per ZSE or VFEX, requirements to allow you to trade. And you always get advice from our analysts on what we think you should buy, but the decision is ultimately to the client. Thanks.
Thank you for those answers, gentlemen. Let me come back to the officials from the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. I'll come to you, Robert. What are some of the market metrics that help in tracking the performance of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange or any market?
Okay, I think the first part is obviously the share price. If you're following a certain counter, you definitely need to understand its history, price history. It is important as an investor. Secondly, you also look at the second matrix, which is more or less related to the share price, which is the index. The index is a mathematical tool used to track securities in that basket or in that index. So it is an important matrix on the basis that it gives you an overall direction in terms of where the market has gone, whether it has gone up or whether it has gone down. But what is important to understand within that index is to say what is composed in each particular index. So if you realize, I'll just give you an example. If you see what's happening on VFX, we only have one index, but you go a step behind on ZSE, there are different indices that we have. So what is critical is then to understand and say, if it's a sectorial based index, suppose it's a consumer staples, which are the counters which are contained in that, which are the underlying securities contained in that index. So that is very key. The other matrix is obviously what you call the market capitalization, which is the value of a company at any point. This gives you an indication in terms of valuation of your security, and this is really a product of a company's share in issue and its market price out there. Then you also have other statistics like your volumes and values traded. This helps you in terms of tracking the liquidity and depth of a security on a market. So when you want to go in or to go out, this then informs you whether you do have a short time period within which you can exit, should you want to exit on an agent basis. So these are some of the metrics that we use. There are several metrics which are there, but perhaps it is just important to highlight the main ones which you come time to time. I think the most important one is this one, the indices, which you find in the general newspapers or on the TV time and again. And it is important to understand what they mean, and they help in terms of decision making. Thank you, Kudzi.
Thank you, Robert. There's a question that comes through. I think it's intended for the stockbrokers. Someone says that in terms of, can you please tell us, can the brokers tell us the requirements that they need for us to be able to start trading on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange? So earlier on, we heard from the custodians what they require in terms of opening accounts. Wafa, can you tell us what you require at Linton Edwards in terms of what investors need to bring for them to be able to open an account with you?
Thank you. So for clients who already had Sitco and Padenga, they are actually ready to transact as long as they've opened their custodial accounts. In terms of new clients, what we require is for them to complete our account opening form and provide us with their KYC documentation, which is a certified copy of ID, proof of residence, passport size photo for individuals. For corporates, we require company documents in addition to these other documents for their individual directors. Thank you, Kudzi.
Thank you so much, Wafa. Now, there's a question that is, I think everybody who has heard about the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, they've expressed concern in terms of how protected or how safe their investments are on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. We all know that the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange is going to be trading in United States dollars. Now, the question that comes through, I think, Robert, you can tackle this one. They say that what safety measures are in place to ensure that my US dollar I have invested on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange will not be converted to a local currency in the future?
Thank you, Kudzi. I think what is important for investors and the public to understand is that, firstly, when we did this exchange, the idea was to differentiate it from the ZSE. There were some concerns which came from the market to kind of indicate that we also needed US-based investments, and people were pushing us towards because the economy kind of allows the dual pricing. Let's also have a dual pricing. But in our view, we believed it was important to have a separate exchange, which is able to trade exclusively in USD or any other hard currency. And this does not need to be associated with the challenges that we had experienced on the ZSE. So there is a specific legislation, which is SI 196 of 2020, which allows the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange to operate exclusively trading in hard currency. The second part, you look at the RRV 177, which is the custodians have mentioned in terms of the exchange control regulations. these speak directly to the operations of the VFEX. And for us, it gives us a bit of comfort in terms of really differentiating the market. And that also helps in terms of providing a bit of comfort to investors to really indicate that these are completely different markets. The other part, which is critical, is I think most of us are aware that the government is working towards an offshore financial services center. And this offshore financial service center, someone had to go ahead in terms of kickstarting it. And we have been at the forefront through the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So we have every belief, a reason to believe that the government is sincere in the direction that they are taking to have an offshore financial services center. And we don't believe, given the steps which are being made, there is any way where we can then mix this US dollar with the local currency. And it is also earmarked to attract investment from not only from Zimbabwe, from the region, and we want it to be a premium exchange. And on that basis, we have received that significant support. But if I'm a foreign investor, perhaps I'm going to ask to say, what has happened on the ZSE at some point? Will that happen on the ZS on the VFX? So if you look at the concessions that we got in terms of that SI 196, we are allowed to have onshore settlement, which we are doing through the central bank. The second phase is to allow us to do offshore settlement. And this is the critical part, and perhaps people get more comfort when we are able to do both on and offshore settlement. But we are at this stage where we are saying, at this moment, we are onshore settlement, but the coming phase is obviously the offshore settlement service. So perhaps that then gives comfort and assurance to people that this is never going to be denominated at some point to a local currency, because we believed the legislation that has been provided has been specific and explicit. Exchange control guidelines have also been explicit in terms of how it speaks to what's supposed to happen on VFEX. So in a nutshell, that in our view provides sufficient comfort to investors.
Thank you, Robert, for giving us that comfort in terms of how safe our investments will be on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, especially when it comes to the currency issues. Now, a question comes through my WhatsApp, Tapiwa. It says that there is no chat box for us to post questions. Maybe you can sort that out. But the question says, ask if one can open a custodial account with another bank. For instance, if one has an FCA account with Stanbic Bank, then can they open custodial account with CAPS, or I have to open another FCA account? So the person has got an FCA account with another bank, and now they need to have a custodial account with CAPS or any other custodian. And the question is, do they have to open another FCA account? I'll post that to Michael.
Thanks, Kudzi. So basically, in terms of the function of that FCA that the client is opening, is basically for making sure that they sell proceeds from the sales that they would have done is deposited into that account, and also where they house their funds that they intend to invest. Because once you now intend to probably buy shares through the custodian, you transfer the funds that are sitting in your FCA account into the settlement account that is used by the particular custodian. So yes, you can open an FCA account with a different bank and use another custodian bank for settlement, because that FCA the client is just to transfer funds to the respective custodian for settlement, and also receive proceeds from settlements that would have happened on their account. Thank you.
Okay, so sticking with the custodians, I'll come to you, Richard. A question here says, what is the process for funding my account, and how will I also be paid when I sell my shares? Okay,
thank you very much for the question. you can either fund your account from your operating account by doing an RTGS in US dollars, transferring to your cash account that would have been opened by the custodian, or you can do an incoming TT, which will be crediting your account. You can do either one way, which suits you, but those are the two ways. But however, you are not able to do a cash deposit into the custodial account. This is in line with the AML guidelines, which are set by SECZIM. Thank you.
Okay, thank you there, Richard, for that answer. Now, let's open the floor to others who are in this meeting. Tapio, maybe you can do the administration there. If there are any questions that are coming from those who are also on this platform.
Okay, that's fine, Kuti.
Maybe as you looking for those questions, there's another question that came through social media when I posted the invite to this meeting. They says, what is the, maybe this is something that either Robert or Tinashe can address. What was the rationale for choosing for the custodial model was chosen for the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange versus the model that you use on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, which stockbrokers can actually open accounts? What was the rationale behind different models for the different markets?
Okay, thank you, Kuti. So the biggest the rationale was based on anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism guidelines. So we are dealing with the US dollar and AML and CFT guidelines are more stringent for the US dollar or for US dollar based transactions. So that was basically the first reason. The second reason was operating omnibus accounts for what you call it, a omnibus funds or settlement account for brokers was going to be difficult with the custodians, given the AML guidelines that they are also given. So in that respect, custodians can also aid on that, on why it is also difficult for them to create an omnibus account where all investors can deposit money into that account for custodians, for stockbrokers. Then there was also need for the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange to get KYC, and that KYC has also had to be compliant, or whoever was going to do the fund settlement had to be satisfied that the KYC that the custodian has collected is sufficient to meet all the KYC or the anti-money laundering guidelines that are set by the bank. We also had issues. So the biggest challenge that the banks then face is if one of their clients then breaches those guidelines, the bank would then pay heavy fines that are imposed by international partners. And it would be very unfair to put that risk on a bank for KYC that they did not collect. So that is the reason why we then insisted that whenever a client is operating through a custodian, the custodian has to be responsible to collect the KYC, open the account, and do all the due diligence around the AML CFT guidelines, so that whatever what you call it, breaches that may occur on that client, the bank or the custodian takes full responsibility of that breach.
Thank you so much, Tinashe.
Yeah, perhaps to add from what Tinashe had said, this is just a minor one. Remember, we talked about the two platforms where we said we are going to do on and offshore settlement. So you realize that the custodians really do have settlement banks which have clearing accounts with the central bank. So with the brokers model, it then becomes difficult for brokers to have a settlement and clearing account at RBZ level. So it is also one of the consideration that we also took into place.
Thank you, Robert and Tinashe there for that explanation. When I ran a poll on Twitter, just to say, despite the impressive and promising set of results that we saw, for example, on one of the companies that is listed there, Padenga, we haven't seen much activity on the platform. And the question or the poll was to say, why are you not participating as yet to take advantage of the companies that are listed there? And at least 34.4% of the respondents said that the process is cumbersome. So I wanted to ask either Robert or Tinashe to say, as participants with your stockbrokers, with your custodians, are you having discussions around how to smoothen the process, or you are satisfied with what it is at the moment?
Okay, I can attempt that, but I think what you need to understand is sometimes information filters slowly to the market. And one of the initiatives that we have done, having realized that there is a bit of challenge or some information gaps, we are running a campaign, one of which is on the social media, which is these particular platforms where we want to demystify the processes and make sure that the processes are as transparent and as easy as possible. So the educational campaign that we are running is basically to go out there and then try to tell people what they need to have. We have also been engaging with key stakeholders like as the custodians in terms of these charges to say, how can we make it more accommodative? And I think you have heard the custodians now having a model where you pay as you trade, unlike a previous scenario where you perhaps are going to be charged a monthly fee. So these are some of the discussions that we have been having to ensure that the process is as smooth as possible. And obviously, there could be some bottlenecks here and there, but we are sensitive to the issues that are really coming in terms of the process so that it is all inclusive. And every other time, should there be any concerns or which come from the market, we are here to be able to assist. Should there be any things that investors are failing to, they are free to access us, and then we'll be in a position to assist where we can.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Robert. Have you got one coming? Yes, you can come in.
To add on to that, my plea is to the custodians to make the information that they require public, as well as their fees that they charge to the retail participants, so that the the account opening processes becomes easier because the information is out there. It also then makes it easier for clients to choose which custodian to go to, as well as the way to go to. That then helps in cutting short the time lag or the processes, because you don't have to go back and forth to custodians, because all the information will be available on their website of what they charge and what they require for you to open a trading account on VFEX. Then the other aspect is on the brokers. The brokers also have to help us with the clients that they already have on their platform. So if you could get information from the custodians, you can then give it to your custodian, to your client, and say, these are the options that you have. If you want to migrate to this to this custodian, this is what they require, and this is the process that you have to do. So the brokers can engage the custodians and get information that they can pass on to their clients who are already holding, who already had shares in broker-controlled accounts. That on the processes that they are required to undertake for them to be able to trade on VFX. So I think it's a collective effort. All of us have to play a role in giving information to the investors on how they can participate on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange.
Thank you, Tinashe and Robert. Tapiwa, any questions on your side?
Yes, Kuzi, I see there are two people who've raised their hand, but maybe let me just read the questions from this end. It was from Dr. Jinya, say that custodians have mentioned the minimum deposit into the accounts. What are the minimum charges per transaction for retail clients? I think I can give it to maybe Richard, if you want to take this.
Thank you, Tapio. For the individuals, we are charging the minimum. For the small deals, we are charging $5 US. And for the corporates, we are charging $15. That is the minimum.
Thank you for that, Richard. Maybe since all custodians are on the call, Michael, would you also want to share the charges for the benefit of the participants here present?
Thanks. Unfortunately, I can't share the fees because they are a competitive tool. So I think that's the reason why you don't find that kind of information in the public domain. But basically, I think the fees are based on the as a percentage of the transaction that one carries out. So yeah, so that's the charging, although there is a minimum that is attached to it. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Michael. And Jasper, the charges from your end?
Thank you. Ours is it's a percentage of the transaction and a minimum of $3. That's how much we charge as CBZ. I guess we are trying to make it as cheap as possible for clients to come in. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jasper. Kuzi, the other question from this end is from Bekite Mangube. He said that if I have Padenga shares and do not plan to sell them in the short term, do I have to get a VFX CSD number and associate Nostro account to receive dividends?
Yes, that's correct. So all investors who had Padenga shares prior to listing on the VFEX already have VFEX CSD numbers through the custodian that they used before. However, if your custodian was a broker controlled or broker administered custodian, that custodian is not active on VFEX and you will not be able to trade. That's the need to open a custodian account with any of the 5 listed custodians on VFEX and have your shares transferred from the broker custodian to the one of the 5 registered custodians on VFEX. However, you need to have a Nostro account for you to receive dividends. So you can go to the VFEX website, which is www.vfex.exchange. You can download the bank detail or your bank detail amendment form that you can then submit to the custodian that you use, who then submit it to us so that we can input or we can forward that information to the transfer secretary, who then pays out dividends into that Nostro account. However, all accounts on VFX or people who have Citco International and Padenga now need to update their banking details to include Nostro accounts, because VFEX listed counters only pay dividends in US dollars.
They will acknowledge.
Thank you for that, Tinashe. Okay, let me read the other questions. How do I find out the fees that are not publicly available, including the percentage for trades? I think this one is directed to any of the stockbrokers present who would want to tackle this. Wafa, if you're still on the call.
I am on the call. So in terms of the charges that I charged on the VFX, these are the trading charges that I'm going to talk about. According to SI 246 of 2020, when you're buying, you're charged about 1.2%. When you're selling, you're charged just under 1%. And then in addition to that are the other charges that we have been talking about, the custodial charges and the bank charges. Thank you, Tapio.
Thanks for that. The other question is, what stock exchange or exchanges is the VFX benchmarking itself against or aiming to match outside Zimbabwe, in emerging markets and in developed markets? What milestones has it set itself for stakeholder functionality, comfort and interest? What is the trajectory looking like to close gap with other exchanges on market strength and speed of trades? What can we look forward to and by when? Let me give this one to Robert. Robert, do I need to repeat the question again, or you got it?
No, I got it, but it's a mouthful. But thank you for that question. Look, we are aiming to be one of the best exchanges in Africa. There are very few exchanges which are operating, really offering other services other than their currency, except Mauritius. And I think Mauritius is far way below us. We are aiming to be the Singapore of Africa. That is our view. And we are really looking forward to compete with all the other offshore financial services centers in the world, which, like the Dubai Financial Services Market, which really offers world-class and high-class facilities. And those are the benchmarks that we really want. So in terms of milestones that we have set, one of the things that we have, I think we need to speak with pride when it comes to the process that we have had so far. I think in a market where the exchange is less than a year and we have 2 listings, it's an important achievement. Secondly, we are going to have another listing in this quarter, and we have a strong pipeline that we have seen, which we believe with the inquiries that are happening, if the necessary requisite approvals are in place, we should be in a position to perhaps add 2 or more listings other than the current one, which is actually out there. So we are confident in terms of the trajectory which we are taking at the moment. Secondly, we are not only looking at the traditional products, which is your equity or your bonds. We are looking beyond the traditional asset classes that we have in this market. I think one of the limitations that we have had on ZSE is obviously our ability to offer other products that helps to speak to different other asset classes because of either the inflationary environment or the currency issues. So if you look at the progress that has been made on the ETF front, we are happy with the progress that has been made. You look at the prospects which we have on the real estate investment trust, we are really good in terms of where we are. The frameworks are there, and there are people really looking at producing something that they are going to bring to the market. So we are really upbeat in terms of the trajectory that we currently have, and we are doing more. We are doing serious engagements. really in terms of marketing the exchange and being in a position to talk to potential investors. And you will be amazed by the level of interest that we are getting and the level of inquiries that we currently have. So we are really positive in terms of what we believe is going to work for VFEX. I'm not sure whether I've answered all of them.
Yes, thank you very much, Robert, for that answer. Let me, because allow me, I know there were two people that had raised their hands. Then I'll go back to the chat before we wrap up. Foresai, you had raised your hand. Please go ahead, unmute and ask your question.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I just wanted to check with you guys from the VFX on the likelihood that you'll be in no time soon or any time in the future likely to bring about something that is a platform like on the go, a mobile platform that we as retail investors can make use of. Just like what we are doing on the ZSC platform. I don't know if you get me audibly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. What we have been working on behind the scenes and what we are continuing to do is obviously to look at how we can make VFX accessible to the retail. Especially, we've had also several inquiries from the diaspora wanting to participate, but we have done the first phase, which is looking at the requirements. We are now looking at the next phase, which is looking at integrating the payment gateways at international level. And that takes a bit of time because we'll be speaking to different partners. So we are in a process of really looking at ourselves in terms of integrating the VFX Direct on the VFX so that retail clients will be in a position to participate.
Thank you very much, Robert. First, I confirm if you have any further questions or you are answered.
Now I'm satisfied. I think it can go on to other participants.
Thank you very much. I can see that the conversation still has to be done, and this was just one of the initiatives that we had taken up as VFX so that at least we get the conversation going. And at the end of the day, we give out the information on how we can start one can actually participate on VFX. Allow me, if there's any other person who still has a burning question, to raise their hand and ask the question, because unfortunately we have run out of time and would want to wrap this panel discussion. If there's still anyone who still has a burning question, please just raise your hand and I'll allow you. Okay, I can see Wiseman, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead and ask your question and you'll be our last participant for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. All right. No, I just wanted to ask something. Someone was saying something about checking the price of shares regularly so that you probably make informed decision. Where do you get that kind of information? Because I understand the information is not available on the platforms that I have been following, including your Twitter handle.
Okay. We do have a website, the VFX website. That information is posted regularly, but perhaps because there's little activity which is taking place, so perhaps you fail to notice. But it is available on our website.
Oh, it's okay. If I get one of the custodians, are they able to send me that information on a regular basis if I approach them?
I'm not sure, but you can literally access our website at your convenience.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Wiseman. I see, Tabang, you have raised your hand, so I'll allow you to then be the final participant for today. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can we get access to this recorded webinar as a tool to spread the word further and enhance investor awareness? Secondly, can the recorded webinar be made available to radio stations as well to improve access to the entire nation?
Thank you for that, Tabang, and thank you for the suggestion. Yes, indeed, we will give you the recording for this webinar, and we'll also share it on all our platforms so that at the end of the day, the message is spread out to everyone who is interested in participating. So we'll definitely do that once we have compressed it so that it's also not huge on your data, but we'll definitely avail the recording. And then allow me to wrap up this panel discussion. I'm sure more will come as we have started the conversation, as I alluded to earlier on, and it was very important. So thank you very much, first and foremost, to all our panelists that took their time to come through and share their feedback, and also to share information for us to know how to participate and what we need to do. Thank you, Michael Kabachika was representing CABS Custodial. Thank you, Jasper Msuka was representing CBZ Custodial Services, and also Richard Mangosho was representing FBC Custodial Services. Thank you again to Wafaku Chera, who was from Lytton Edward, Kuzai Machuma from IH Securities, and Tabang Madiriza from Bethel Securities. And also thank you to our VFEX representative, Robert Mbayo, our head of trading, Tinashe Mapara, head of depository, in Motaringa, head of business development. And also thank you very much to our moderator for today, who was Kuzanai Sharara, for leading this panel discussion, and a heartfelt and thank you very, very much to all our participants that were in this webinar. It would not have been successful without your participation. We'll be sharing this link with everyone on email, and also for some of the information that you require, we'll also share it as part of the email. So thank you once again to everyone that attended, and I wish you a good day. Thank you very much.